Hello, kia ora, g'day. I'm Philip Duncan from Weather Watch TV on YouTube with your Australia-only 7-day forecast tracking the big picture rainmakers that are moving across the continent over the next week. Let's kick off with the satellite map. Plenty of wet weather pushing around Queensland and into New South Wales. We've got a little bit of wet weather into South Australia as well. The more explosive rain bands up here in the tropics, this area here in particular around the Kimberley and west of Darwin, there is a low pressure zone in there. It's been there for a while and it might still spark up into a tropical cyclone. Very borderline, probably more likely to remain just shy of it, but it is possible. So we'll show you that map in a moment. We've also got a severe tropical cyclone out here in the Indian Ocean, category 3 when we recorded this, named Courtney, and that may well become category 5 in the next few days, but it's moving away from Australia, no threat to land. Meanwhile, to the south, high pressure carries on. That's why it is still dry in many of these areas to the south. We'll track the rain that's on its way in for you very shortly. Here is the big picture showing the air pressure system. So the dark shading shows low pressure, bright shading, high pressure. So that belt of high pressure still down to the south. We are seeing some signs of it breaking up a little bit though as we go into April, not quite all linked together like a chain link fence. Some bigger gaps forming, not so much here still in March though. Here is that low dropping down into the Queensland area. That's going to be producing some rain, thunderstorms in the days ahead. The yellow shaded L, that is the one that might become a tropical cyclone. We've got about a moderate chance of that happening, and so does the Bureau of Meteorology. So we've both got the same kind of thought process on that one. I'll show you why in a second, why that one might become a cyclone, but why it's so borderline, and then obviously the severe cyclone offshore there. Right, let's get into the forecast on Friday. So we'll kick off with what's happening in the east, because clearly that is the most widespread area of wet weather as we end the working week. Tropical humid weather coming from the tropics straight on into Queensland, so certainly I know many of you since Alfred have had a lot of humid, showery weather. No real change happening here. The low right over in the central eastern part of Australia, straddling the Northern Territory, Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales, driving in a bit of a windy easterly, not too bad, but a little bit of a windy system. And north of Broken Hill, maybe a few severe thunderstorms, as around Charleville. I think Charleville, sort of within 150 k's of Charleville, there'll be some decent thunderstorms coming through over the next couple of days as all of this drifts towards the eastern coastline. High pressure to the south keeps it dry over Tassie, much of Victoria, and the southern part of South Australia. And then you got basically 3/4 of Western Australia dry and very hot, still getting up around 40 degrees for some of you at the moment. Here's a closer view of what is going to likely happen up in the Kimberley area later on Friday, local time here. So look, 987 hectopascals, getting down to the point where a cyclone's possible, category 1. But it's interacting with all the land here, the islands, the national parks, get in the way of the storm, perfectly spinning. And so it's borderline as it comes in. Super warm sea temperatures at the moment, at their highest of the year. We're still in the cyclone season for over another month to go just yet. End of April is when it finishes. So this is worth keeping an eye on, but it's borderline, you know, right there at this stage, probably not going to be a cyclone, but if you suddenly hear a name announced tomorrow, you know why, because this is right on the border of it. But this is a very remote part of Western Australia. Not many people living here, but national parks, a lot of people like to go to them, right? So here we are on Saturday, that low pushing inland, plenty of rain with it. Once again, looks as though Broome and that rain shadow to the west, not likely yet to be affected, but if you live in Broome, certainly keep up to date. You never know with a kind of messy system like this one, what it might end up doing. Further over to the north here, the top end in Katherine, you've got some thunderstorms, maybe severe in the Katherine area, and then further down into Queensland, still seeing some severe thunderstorms, perhaps breaking apart now in the Charleville area, and you're seeing more of that wet weather pushing down into New South Wales. Heavy falls from the northern rivers all the way down to about Sydney along the coast. As we got that humid, wet northeasterly coming down, the rain is stuck in a bit of a air pressure valley where you've got high pressure to the south ballooning up, high pressure in the Tasman pushing back, and that rain's just sort of trapped there, which is why it could set in and produce some heavier falls. Windier and drier elsewhere, not very much in the way of rain for Victoria or for South Australia, but you might still see a few thunderstorms if you're lucky just to the northeast of Adelaide. Well to the northeast of Adelaide, actually. Here we are on Sunday. More severe thunderstorms forming up, mostly at higher elevation, and the afternoon heating is certainly going to help produce some bigger downpours across the day. Now off the east coast of Sydney, you're getting what you guys call an east coast low. That is deepening out here, and as it deepens out at sea, and the high comes in to Tasmania, You get the squash zone with the air pressure. So windy easterlies, gale or even severe gale possible in exposed parts of the border there in the southeast between New South Wales and Victoria. Windy weather pushes out, but likely to be very dry once you get to about Melbourne and certainly west of Melbourne to Adelaide. Very dry conditions, extreme fire risk as that wind picks up and blows all the way over to Western Australia, where you might have a few showers south of Perth, not very much, certainly dry and hot further northwards. And you've got that tropical low now dumping maybe 150 millimetres of rain, more than a year's worth of rain in some of these desert areas, falling in a very short amount of time as that moves south and runs also into high pressure, why the winds might be a little bit strong out there. All right, let's start off next week now. So the big high to the south pushes in over Tasmania. The storm east of Sydney deepens further. That drives in, by the looks of it here, a windy southerly coming up, fading out around about Sydney. So if you're landing in Sydney, you'll probably be landing from the north to the south, straight into that windy kind of weather. A few bumps around, nothing too major. Probably bumpier if you're flying from Sydney to Melbourne, going over the Alps with the southeasterly winds blowing through there for you. And some rain in that southeastern corner. Otherwise, very dry, windy for most places. Maybe a couple of showers around Esperance. And look at the rain that's forming from the leftovers of that low. That came in from the Kimberley. Coming down now, heavy rain around Uluru, Ayers Rock area, and further towards Alice Springs across the day. Severe thunderstorms in the forecast. We've got a few showers, maybe severe thunderstorms at the top, the tropical parts of Australia, the top end, and over here to the far north Queensland and west of Townsville, maybe seeing some heavier falls. Elsewhere, showers, humid kind of weather. Not as humid in New South Wales as it will be up here in Queensland. So going through next week, so we've got a low out here around Vanuatu. We've got a low southeast of Sydney. We've got low pressure all across the Coral Sea and the tropics of Australia. So we are properly into a tropical feed of weather at the moment. Not so much further down around New South Wales, Victoria. We do have some showers remaining in the southeast corner. Eastern parts of Tasmania get a few showers, otherwise dry for you. And a large part of Western Australia now dry. Maybe a couple of showers around Port Hedland and further inland right here on the border of the Northern Territory. And as we go into the middle part of next week, here it looks like the next outbreak of downpours around a big part of Queensland and also the northeastern corner, or the northern half, let's say, actually, of New South Wales. It's sort of maybe tracking along from southwest to northeast. So we could be seeing some severe thunderstorms coming in to northern parts of New South Wales as we go into the middle portion of next week. There is tropical weather up here, and to the south, a southerly. So that's usually a perfect recipe to get a few heavy downpours in the middle part. But yeah, southerlies coming through here. Not much in the way of rain, I'm sorry, for Adelaide, Kangaroo Island, all the coastal areas in the south there, not much rain. Same story for Victoria and for Tasmania. Although Tassie, look at this, blue line. That's a sign of an Antarctic little burst of weather. Nothing too huge for Tassie itself, but you see here on Thursday showing the big picture, that big blue area, that's an injection of cold coming from Antarctica. It just comes up to the Tasmania area. So you're going to hear sou'westers, showers, squalls. Quite a few people said yesterday, where's autumn? Tell me when autumn's turning up. This might be it here. This could be autumn turning up on Thursday of next week. Another thing to note, the massive gap between high pressure. High number 1 out here over the south of the Indian Ocean, not even moving really in yet. And high number 2 east of New Zealand. That's the first time we've seen a really large low pressure zone between New Zealand and Australia. So that does bode well for some more rain happening, hopefully into the driest areas, but this is all low pressure in the tropics, all low pressure in the Tasman Sea for the most part anyway. Let's have a look at 7-day rainfall. The areas in blue, much wetter than average for this time of the year. Areas in red, drier than usual. So it's kind of a normal map in many ways, but unfortunate to see these areas, especially around Adelaide and Western Victoria. I've had so many comments from people saying, where is the rain? We want rain. Once more, that rain further to the north. But it's good to see not as much red to your south. That's a sign that maybe the Southern Ocean is going to wake up. So hopefully when we update you again next week, there's more blue in these southern areas. Fingers crossed for that. Let's have a look at the 7-day rainfall right now, animated for you. So you can see the thunderstorm outbreak, the widespread showers and rain pushing across Queensland and New South Wales. That is the tropical low coming through. That could still move around a wee bit, but you certainly, when you see a line like that, you know that's a low moving through. This is why we'll be keeping an eye on the line here as well. Could be some more tropical lows around the Coral Sea and that wet weather pushing out towards the New Zealand area, but not much in the areas that really do want it western half of Victoria, a large part of South Australia, and a large part here of Western Australia, although you are getting some wet weather in the southwest of Western Australia. And around Tassie, most of the rain on the west coast, the more populated areas from Lonnie to Hobart, looking a lot drier. Let's have a look now at the place of the day this week, Carnarvon, Western Australia. Just thinking the other day, I've never actually flown into the airport here on Flight Simulator, and I don't think I've even flown over the town and paid any attention to it. So I talk about it all the time. Here's a proper view of it. Look at the annual rainfall, just 227 millimetres, extremely dry part of Australia, not surprising. Look at the temperatures, 29 to 40 degrees. 40 is likely today. So Thursday is one of the hottest days you've got coming up of the next week. Overnight temperatures 21 to 26, and the 7-day forecast, pretty simple. If I was a weather forecaster in Carnarvon, it would be a very, very good job. You just sort of say sun for 10 days and then grab your surfboard and off you go. No more work to do for another week. That is all from me for today. Thank you so much for all the amazing comments we get on YouTube. We read every single one of them. We try to reply to all of them. We don't always manage to do that, but please know we read them all. Thank you very much. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week.